Hey everybody, it's CSEC Panda, and in this video we're going to continue solving this English A Paper 2. Now we're on Section B, which is the second question out of 4 that you'd have to answer when you're doing this paper in the exam, right? So the time they suggest for this question is 35 minutes, as you see, and it's actually worth 30 marks. So this is one of the heavier questions in this paper. It's the one that people normally refer to as the letter writing question, but don't let that mislead you, even though in this particular case they did want you to write a letter, because this is really the fact reporting test. So what they're going to do is that they're going to give you a situation, so it could be a statistical report, an accident report, even something like a press release, any report of an incident where they give you facts, and then you have to extract and reorganize those facts in a way that will allow you to clearly restate to them in a formatted way what happened. So that's what you should be preparing to do. Don't just think it could be a letter, because it might take you by surprise. Now, as you see from this truly beautiful penmanship, I have solved this paper by hand, and I did it under exam conditions so that you could see exactly the format, exactly how it fits on the pages, and be as close as possible to understanding what it would be like on the exam. My goal in doing this was to help you see what mistakes I made, what I could have done better, and to help you understand what you are looking at when you come to doing this yourself. So let's just take it from the top and let me see if I can run through how I solved this, right? They suggested 35 minutes. I think it took me 38, and there were a couple of things that I thought I could have done better. But reading the instructions, we see that they want us to study the situation that's presented below and then answer the question that follows. So this is the situation. You purchased an item from a supermarket. On arrival home, you noticed that the expiry date had passed. You attempted to return the item, but you were told that it was on sale, and the manager refused to give you a refund or a replacement. So, write a letter to a consumer protection group or the editor of a newspaper in which you complain about the quality of the product and the treatment which you received. And so in your answer, what they're going to assess you on is how well you format the letter, how well you select the relevant information that was in here, how you organize and express the info in your letter, how you use your grammar, sentence structure, vocabulary, spelling, and punctuation. So looking for a well-organized, well-formatted letter with good grammar and good vocabulary and punctuation. When they say a letter has to be in continuous prose, that basically just means to write it in flowing paragraphs as you might normally write anything, as opposed to like bullet points or some other format that's just not completely normal. Okay, so they want to help you out here by reminding you to include details like the date and time of the purchase, the cost of the item, the specific condition of the item, and the response of the staff. Now, what this basically means is that you would be trying in your note-taking section, very much like you see I did here, to get what they call the 5WH questions answered, right? That means 5 W's, who, what, when, where, why, and the H is how. The big benefit of doing this, as you see I did some of it down here, would be that it helps you to get the setting together in your mind so that when you come to writing, you can make these little check marks as you go along, these little ticks, so you see which part of this you already included and what still needs to go in, and so on and so forth. So no matter what the incident is, it will always have who was involved, where it happened, when it happened, what happened, why it happened, and that should allow you to basically get the format kind of quickly for what you are trying to do here. So I decided on a few things. I said I was going to say that there were insects in the product. I chose for it to be oats. I selected a price. I just made it up, $55. And then I went on to just reiterate what I was going to talk about. So I was going to talk about the incident was I purchased it on sale, and then there was this unsuccessful attempt to return it, and I'm unhappy about it. So I rewrote here the date, time, cost, condition, response, because that's what they said up here to make sure to include those things. So I just kind of rewrote it for myself to kind of remember that and to get my thoughts together. Then I spent a minute or so kind of working on the vocabulary so I could get the right tone of voice for what I was going to try to do here. So I had these words and it was just kind of to stimulate my own thinking. Regret, complain, the rude treatments, the dismissive attitude, maybe, the harsh conduct, because remember this is a letter of complaints that I'm going to be writing to these people about how I was dissatisfied with this service. So I was like, poor service, shoddy. I could even say that there was like a health risk. I was disappointed. And so that was just me kind of jogging my own brain to see what I was going to say. Now, when I came to writing, I knew that when they said that they were going to judge based on format, I was going to have to get this letter writing format correct. Now, for one thing, putting everything to the left is the easiest thing to do. This is the format that they accept, thankfully, because this is the sample paper. There are the answers in the answer key, and this is how they expect it to be, that you just align everything with the left side of the paper, right? I did go in for putting paragraphs. As you see, I indented here inside of the letter, because I believe that's not a problem, but it also just makes it easier to read, and it's still standard letter writing and standard continuous prose, so I went in for that. It would have been too kind of jammed up if I just went with everything flowing exactly with the left side of the page. But in terms of, do you put your address on the right side or date on the right side or whatever? No, you just want to put everything on the left, and that's the standard basic format. Alright, so the order that this always comes in is your address, that is the person writing the letter, then the date, then their address, that's who you're writing to, and then dear whoever, in this case because it's a kind of businessy thing, it's dear sir or madam, right? I made up the address. I saw that they do not actually want you to use your address or anything like that, just make up an address, right? I made up a date as well, but I guess you'd be using that day's date when you're in the exam, so that's what's up. Right, so I got that in there. Again, another thing is that you're writing to the manager. Whenever you don't know who you're writing a letter to, but it's to whoever's in charge, you would think, it's just the manager of wherever is where you address it, right? So that's your address, the date, their address, and then the dear sir or madam. And that has got to score you a number of marks right there just for doing that, so if you can't think of anything else to do, then do that part. Then I opened. I write to complain to you about a disturbing situation that arose last week, Tuesday the 8th, relating to a purchase that I made at Happy Eats grocery store. At about 3:45 p.m., I purchased 2 tubs of rolled oats, which were listed on special offer of buy one get one free. Though I was initially pleased with my purchase, which totaled $55, and reflected a wonderful bargain, my satisfaction was short-lived. I should have had a comma, though, between after bargain, but I dropped that out. Upon opening my purchases, I found that both tubs of oats were infested with crawling insects. The label reveals that the product was 5 weeks expired. I decided to return the unacceptable product and to get a refund. However, on Wednesday at 8:30 a.m., when I returned to Happy Eats with my receipts and the intention to secure either a replacement or a $55 refund, I was met with a shock. Again, there should have been a comma there. I almost wonder if when I scanned this it dropped out. Maybe. But there should be a comma after refund. Upon explaining my situation to the manager of the store and displaying both the poor condition of the product and the long past expiry date, I was met with disinterest. The manager coldly informed me that since I had accepted the offer, there was nothing they could do. I left without redress. How can I be satisfied with this rude and thoughtless service? I felt that my only choice was to escalate this incident to your office for investigation of Happy Eats' quality of product and service. Yours sincerely, a concerned customer. Now that actually took me like maybe 40 minutes to write or so, maybe 38, I believe. And they suggested 35 minutes. I was aiming, as I said, to definitely include these things: the date and time, the cost of the item, the specific condition, as they said, and I wanted to secure the formats. Alright, so I got those checked off. Then they said select relevant and complete information. I think that what I said there basically covered the incident as it happened. But what I wanted and what I wish I had done and how I wish it came out, but this is really all I was able to do in the time, is I wish it had a more complainy sound, because I feel like even this letter, while it did contain all of the stuff that they wanted, and when I looked at the answer key after, it was pretty alright, I found that this didn't really sound like a complaint enough, although it was a good report of the incident, of what actually happened, and it included the date, the time, the price when I looked back at it. But I didn't think that the tone of it was as complaining as it could have been. Otherwise, though, this shows that they couldn't have expected you to write that much more, because I was out of space, and I got all of the facts in. I attempted to use some vocabulary in some places. I said, okay, so it's a disturbing situation. I was initially pleased. I just tried to use some slightly bigger words. My satisfaction was short-lived, right? Infested with crawling insects. So I was trying to bring in that tone of, okay, well, I used some vocabulary, and they had a way to see that I could do a little bit of spelling. I don't know if I have any spelling errors in here, but they can't be too bad, right? And so I felt my only choice was to escalate the incident. That was me trying a little more vocabulary and so on, though. And yeah, so that's how it was, and then I signed it off. Yours sincerely, a concerned customer. Now, I was tempted to put the signature on the other side, just because that felt right to me, but I stuck left, and that, according to the answer key, was what they wanted you to do. You're not actually supposed to sign this with your name, so you can just make up a name. It could have been John Doe or Jane Doe, and that would have been fine. I just signed it a concerned customer because I thought that they were more so looking for the format than the like the actual words that you used in that particular instance. So again, this was the format of it. This was the planning stage where I went for the who, what, when, where, and you see I did not do that as thoroughly as I could have. Maybe if I had, I may have ended up with a better final product, but I was trying to juggle between the amount of time I had and the way it actually feels when you're doing it. Like, it's easy to look back after it's complete and think, oh, I could have done this better, or I could have done that better, or oh, it doesn't sound so hard. But when you're actually doing it, it really does take this much time, and there's not a lot of time to stick. So that is what I got. But I think that this would have done pretty well, especially when I compared it with what they had in the answer keys after I wrote it, because it definitely answers all of the queries that they had. It reports the incident. It includes formatting, relatively relevant and complete information that has been organized in order of what happened first, second, and last. And it has used pretty good grammar, pretty good sentence structure, decent vocabulary, decent spelling, decent punctuation, and continuous prose. So that ought to satisfy them. And so that was my answer for section B of this. It took me 38 minutes, which was a little bit over the suggested time, but I made up for that later, and I actually finished with 15 minutes to spare. So that wasn't too bad. And yeah, so that was the answer for the letter writing section. I hope that that has given you some sort of insight into what they might be looking for, and I hope that you will catch the next part, which is section C, which has to do with writing a short story. If you didn't see the part before, section A, where we talked about summary writing, that is also out, and you can see how I worked through that answer as well. I hope this has been helpful to you, and I will see you next time.